native landscape. So before we begin, when I was asked to do this, do a presentation in this meetup itself, I was wondering what the topic I should talk about here. And out of the topics, I thought this would be the ideal because of an incident that happened a couple of months back. When we were actually organizing the first meetup, Cloud Native Foundation sent us a bunch of slides, which we gave half to you guys and half we kept for ourselves. Yeah, just like our government. So, so what happens is that these are the stuff that we got, and just some of it. So, when my good friend Achal and Tharad were there, we were there when we received this, and then I was like, Machan, I only know Kubernetes here. What are the other stuff? And Achal was like, Mandandit never. So yeah, that was kind of how the conversation went, because a lot of us actually didn't know what this meant. But we are supposed to give this away for you guys. So it's actually our responsibility to actually tell you guys what these projects mean, right? So that's pretty much it about the cloud native landscape. That's what I'm going to talk to you about today. So after the end of this presentation, hopefully you will understand what each of these projects would mean. It's a lot to take in. Yeah, let's just bear with me. Okay. This is me, Nilesh Jayanandhan, and you can tweet me at Nilesh_93. Okay, so before going with cloud native landscape, I thought I would just introduce what cloud native means. So, show of hands, does any of you define what cloud native is? Yeah, so is hosting your application in a cloud service provider really mean that you have gone cloud native? What do you think? Yeah, I see one guy shaking his head, so that means yeah, no, that's good. So actually not just signing up with a cloud provider to run existing application, no, that's not going cloud native. It's something different. You have to actually, architecturally, you have to design your software in a different way, application in a different way to actually go really cloud native. So Cloud Native Foundation has given us 3 points, has defined 3 points to actually make your application cloud native. One, the application becoming containerized. That means your application would run as an individual container isolated from its host system. And secondly, dynamically orchestrated, so that you know your containers are dynamically orchestrated in a sense means that its orchestration is based upon external factors like process load, something like that, some metrics, and you know it will automatically scale up, scale down, delete itself, restart itself, stuff like that. That's dynamically orchestrated and microservice oriented. So that's pretty much, if you meet these three, according to CNCF, you would have gone cloud native. That's what it, yeah. So cloud native landscape. So over the years, a lot of projects that are supporting cloud native, you know, tools for cloud native, etc., have been there on open source. So Cloud Native Foundation has identified the best ones, and they have created something called Landscape. That's, if you go into landscape.cncf.io, you would see an interactive page where they have listed all of the projects that are in their cloud native landscape. That is this. So I'm not going to be talking about all of these because obviously I don't know all of these myself, but I know a couple of here that are really important, and you know, because CNCF sent us the stickers, you know, I looked up the names and I kind of understood what they meant. So I will be talking mostly about those, specifically the ones that are incubating and ones that are graduated from the CNCF incubator. So yeah, this is a lot to take in, but I won't be doing all of this today. Yeah. So this is the cloud native trail map that they have provided. This is the trail map for them, for a company or a software to actually move into the cloud native, becoming cloud native. Like first you have to containerize it, CI/CD, orchestration, observability, service proxy discovery and mesh, networking, etc. All of these things, this is the journey for becoming a cloud, making your application cloud native. This is the path. So with that said, I'm going to be talking about a couple of segments today, 5 actually, 6, yeah, 5. App development, runtime, orchestration and management, provisioning, and observability and analysis. So I'll be discussing good projects, important projects that CNCF has with them in the landscape under these categories. The first one is app development. So this will cover, I'll probably do databases, messaging and definition and CI/CD. So the first one is Vitess. Has any of you heard of what Vitess is? Project Vitess? Anyone? Cool. I was hoping that you guys would be knowing it, so yeah. Thank God. Okay. So Vitess is a database clustering system for MySQL, and it supports horizontal scaling. So we all know that MySQL actually doesn't properly support horizontal scaling, yeah? But this Vitess project, they have done it in a way that it supports MySQL to be horizontally scaled. And that's not all. It provides shard management. So you guys know what sharding means, right? Sharding means basically dividing your database data into multiple instances, so that this is achieved in NoSQL, but it could be achieved in MySQL. Then the next one is connection pool. So MySQL per connection, there's huge overhead of process. They have actually done it in a way that these connections are actually, they are using less process and it's highly efficient apparently. That's what their documentation says. And yeah, scalability, I said, it supports horizontal scaling, so which is good as opposed to vertical scaling. And finally, performance. So one of the performance features that I noticed that they have is that, if you write an expensive query on Vitess, it will automatically rewrite it for a better efficient query and run it for you. So even if you are a bad coder or a bad SQL engineer, it doesn't matter, because if you write something bad, some heavy task or something that is very ineffective, it will automatically rewrite your query for yourself. So you can check it out at vitess.io. So something to consider about if for your next cloud native project, Vitess. Next one is NATS. Did any of you get the NATS sticker today? Okay, then we shall skip this. Okay. Yeah, so NATS is basically messaging system. So it supports basic ones, right? PubSub, request, reply, queuing, all the stuff that are required in a messaging system. But what intrigued me the most, I will share you the link later on, is that they have done a comparison with RabbitMQ, Apache Kafka, and NATS. And apparently, according to that particular article, NATS has hit Kafka and RabbitMQ out of the park with performance, like 5 or 6 times, I think. So it's a really good project, and if you have a PubSub or something that you have planned for in the next project or something, just give it a thought on using this. Okay. Next is Helm, which is the yeah. So Helm. So I'm sure some of you might have heard of Helm. Show of hands of the guys who have heard of Helm or are using Helm. Alright, couple. Alright, awesome. Okay, so Helm is the de facto package manager for Kubernetes. So what Helm does is, like, if you have done deployments in Kubernetes, you should know that for a Kubernetes deployment, you would need a deployment.yaml file, service.yaml, ingress.yaml, if you are doing persistent volumes.yaml, lot of YAMLs, right? And it's very hard for you to manage all of these stuff, right? And say your friend wants to run your application, he has to run all of those YAMLs himself again. So Helm has introduced something called charts, Helm charts, which you could actually store configure all of these configurations in a Helm chart, so that you could run it once and your application would be deployed in Kubernetes. So Helm is like the node package manager for Node, something like that, Kubernetes. So basically easy updates, rollbacks and simple sharing, all of them are there, and Helm is supported by many major companies because there's an official Helm chart for MySQL, official Helm chart for GitLab, all of the open source applications, there's an official Helm chart for that. So if you want to deploy your application, deploy some third-party application in Kubernetes, Helm is the way to go because it configures everything for you. Okay. Then CI/CD. I was just lazy to pick out one by one, so I just pasted the whole picture here. The important ones are Spinnaker, open source by Netflix. At Platform Cloud, we are using Google Cloud Build, and I really recommend it. It's really good. There's something called Circle CI, and I think you guys are using Jenkins. A lot of DevOps guys are in Sri Lanka are using Jenkins. There's no life for them without Jenkins, right? So Jenkins is also there. Drone, yeah. So all of these, probably I don't know whether Ruan is here today, but in the DevOps meetup, they would probably cover these stuff. So I thought I'd skip this in Kubernetes meetup. So just know that these stuff are out there, because we don't have stickers also from them, so no worries. The next one is runtime. So to run an application, a couple of things that you have to know about. One is storage. So Ceph is a distributed object block and file storage platform, not specifically for Kubernetes, but for cloud native infrastructure. Alright, so it actually supports availability, everything that has in cloud native application, everything is there in Ceph. So Rook is built on top of Ceph to provide Kubernetes native support, so that you could actually implement your own data storage cluster in Kubernetes itself. So I'm not going to go into much detail about this because Anuradha will be doing that. So yeah. The next one is container runtime. So who have heard of Containerd and Rocket? Container. No. Okay. So Container daemon is the Docker runtime. All right. So Docker combines with runc and actually executes its stuff in the Containerd runtime. Whereas Rocket is a security-minded standards-based container engine. That's also something similar to what Containerd is, but different in many ways internally. A lot of people, there's a buzz around Rocket. There's a chance it might become bigger in the coming steps because it's much more security-oriented compared to Docker. And then there's gCloud Visor. It's not really a container runtime, but I was just too lazy last night to create another slide for this. So it's here. gCloud Visor is also something really new. It actually sandboxes your containers. Something like it enables virtualizations for your container itself. So like in this container runtime, sometimes there's a chance the hackers could actually exploit, right? In a cluster system, your container, if there are vulnerabilities in images, stuff like that. So it could be exploited. But gCloud Visor is still new, but they are actually virtualizing it from the kernel itself, and the container will have a new kind of like something called space kernel, and every process will be taken from there. So it's pretty complicated, but yeah, pretty interesting project. So we'll see how it goes next year. Yeah, so these are the stuff about the container runtime. Am I going too fast? Alright. Yeah. Then there's cloud native network. So how many of you have created the Kubernetes cluster in a local, in a private cloud, like manually? Who has created? You have. I know Kasun has. Alright. Okay. So when you create using KubeADM, you have to use and choose a network. So CNI, which is the CNCF incubating project, that is not basically a network plugin for Kubernetes, but it kind of has the plugins and the standards for creating Kubernetes CNN network plugins for Kubernetes. So the common ones are Flanner, WeaveNet, Calico, and County. But all of these have their separate use cases and separate pros and cons. If you guys request in a future meetup, we will actually compare this stuff and actually get back to you on which one to use for which use case in the future one, not this one. I don't know all of them. So the next one is going cloud native is orchestration and management. So here we all know Kubernetes, right? But in the last meetups, I remember somebody asking, what are the alternatives for Kubernetes? And somebody asked me, why not Docker Swarm? These are the alternatives for Kubernetes. Amazon ECS. A lot of Sri Lankans are using Amazon, so probably you guys are already familiar with Amazon ECS. Azure also has something, and Apache Mesos is also good. There's another one that is not here called Netflix Titus. That's not actually under the wing of Cloud Native at the moment. And then there's Docker Swarm. And also I thought that I would answer the question that was asked last time. Why not Docker Swarm? Why Kubernetes? Kubernetes, as you probably know, it's derived from the Google Bob project, which Google has been deploying their infrastructure and deploy applications for past few years. And they open source this as Kubernetes, and it has taken the community by storm, and a lot of people are using it, and there's a huge ecosystem around Kubernetes. Docker Swarm, however, is another story. Docker gave it up. Yeah, Docker released it, but they told that it's not production ready, and then they kept pursuing Docker for a while, Docker Swarm for a while, and after that, suddenly last year I think, they also embraced Kubernetes. Docker Swarm is still a live project, but Docker also has embraced Kubernetes as well. So overall, Kubernetes is your best bet in the DevOps career if you're going to learn about orchestration, learn about Kubernetes, you will have good jobs. So yeah. The next one is CodeDNS. This is a service discovery project. And a better alternative, I might say, for KubeDNS. Actually, it's picking up hype, and I think in the future it might actually replace KubeDNS, and instead CodeDNS would run instance in upcoming in the future, I think. So what makes this so good? What's the hype about? Right, KubeDNS is somewhat very simple, and it does what it's supposed to do, service discovery. But CodeDNS has something called DNS function, which means that you can write plugins for CodeDNS, and you can chain those plugins together. Like for an example, or you could say when the service discovery and when it works, you could actually send traces to Prometheus or somewhere else, and you could implement a function and see whether the user is actually logged or not. Stuff like that. You could actually write functions and chain them together in addition to service discovery. So that's what makes this very special. There's a lot of hype for this project. Better check it out. You can play with it, play around with it. The documentation is all pretty neat. So yeah, if you want, we will organize a talk in the future session on CodeDNS. Next one is gRPC. I'm sure all of you are familiar with gRPC. I think we gave out the gRPC stickers last time. Hopefully, if you have Googled after, yeah. So gRPC is a remote procedure. Remote procedure call makes remote procedure calls across different across applications that are running on different languages. Like for an example, in the microservice architecture we have nowadays, right? So one app is running on Node, the other supporting app is running on Python, another one on Go, another one on Rust. Likewise, there are a lot of applications that are small applications running on different languages. So RPC allows you to actually connect those applications through HTTP2 without actually knowing the underlying connection between. You could actually call their functions like a native function and work with it with gRPC. So pretty cool project. Check it out. Envoy. So Envoy is also a service discovery project. I'm not going to go into much details about Envoy at the moment because NetMini would be doing her Istio session today. Istio is built on top of Envoy. So yeah, Envoy basically has HTTP2 and gRPC support and advanced load balancing, observability, and out of the process architecture. It's a really good project. Check it out. Istio is a better project, so it's built on top of Envoy. So API gateways. Yeah, this one I think I have heard of Ambassador. We've done some work with Ambassador, but Kong also I have heard some people. I think BSN guys are using Kong. Yeah, so API gateways is another topic for the DevOps meetup, not for the Kubernetes meetup. Sorry. Service mesh. There are two here, Linkerd and Istio. Linkerd is actually, although it's CNCF incubating, Istio is the project that there's a very huge buzz about. If you guys have heard of Knative, Knative is built on top of Istio. And there's a huge buzz on Istio, and I think there's a huge potential. Istio is becoming very big in the future. So before me talking about all of this stuff, I'll explain what service mesh is. A service mesh is basically in the microservices architecture, right? You have about 10 services, 15 services, that's fine. But imagine a huge application and infrastructure, right? You would have thousands of services and all of them interworking together, talking to each other, and it's a mesh. It's a mesh actually, it's a mesh. To monitor them would be a nightmare. To monitor and handle them, the same traffic, micromanage them would be a terrible nightmare. I don't even want to think about it. So Istio and Linkerd are the solutions for this, as they actually allow you to manage these service meshes effectively. I'm not going to go into much details on what Istio does. NetMini will do a proper session after today itself. Okay. Fourth one is provisioning. Here also, I think a lot of topics for the DevOps meetup, like the automation and configuration, OpenStack, Ansible, Chef, Puppet, stuff like that. All of these are automation and configuration tools. Probably topics for the DevOps meetup, if one is here. The next one is container registry. So because you came to the Kubernetes meetup, you already know what Docker is, and you already know what containers are and what container registry is, right? So I'm sure you're probably using Docker registry. Probably if you are using Microsoft Azure registry and Amazon ECR or Google Cloud registry. But what you don't, I'm sure, I don't know whether you know or not, but there's an open source registry called Harbor, which is incubating under CNCF, which provides better security and everything that Docker registry doesn't support. The free Docker registry doesn't support. Docker Enterprise registry supports everything, but yeah, Harbor is something for you to check it out if you want a private repository or something for free. This is open source. Then security and compliance. Did you guys get these stickers today? Okay, probably then in the next meetup. Okay, we have these stickers. Okay, so TUF and Notary. So TUF means the update framework, which actually allows developers to send side updates for their applications. And Notary is built on top of TUF. Like Notary is for example, say I get a loan, right? I get a loan from bank, and then a guarantor would be signing the bank, signing with me, saying that I would definitely pay up the loan, right? He guarantees it. It's something like that. Notary acts as a middleman, and it allows you it signs your updates and it makes sure that it's delivered where it should be and it's not actually messed around and tampered with. So something like that's what Node.js is. So in addition, I would like to point out two more projects here, Claire and Aqua. Any of you heard of CoreOS? Awesome. Alright, probably you have heard of Claire as well, right? So Claire is basically open source by CoreOS guys. It's a tool for scanning your Docker images. So you might have seen on your Docker register somewhere that 5 critical vulnerability, 2 medium vulnerability, etc. etc. So that's the work of Claire or Aqua. These two are the major projects that are responsible for actually scanning your images and getting the vulnerabilities out. Platform or cloud, we use Claire. Then key management. This was also a question asked last time in the meetup. What is a secure way to store secrets and sensitive data on Kubernetes? We all know Kubernetes has something called secrets, but it's not really that secure. It's just basically for encryption and that's it. So the answer for this is Vault, right down here by HashiCorp. That also has gaining a lot of buzz in the community itself, in the ecosystem of Kubernetes. A lot of people are using it. This is the best and the most secure way for you at the moment for you to store your secrets, credentials, service keys, whatnot, all the stuff in your Kubernetes cluster. And you do it by running it through a sidecar container pattern. There's a tutorial for it. I'll probably share it in the Kubernetes Sri Lanka page later on. Okay. Then finally, the last one of a very boring speech, observability and analysis. So, who's using Prometheus at the moment? Anyone? All right, you. All right. Stackdriver? Okay. All right. So those two are the ones that I know out of all of these. So. Yeah, Prometheus and Prometheus is anyway, it's open source and it's graduated in CNCF. So what Prometheus offers is it allows you to monitor and analyze what's happening in your Kubernetes cluster, the apps that are running, the apps that are hogging. You could see what's taking more CPU, what's taking less RAM, stuff like that. Whether you could actually improve your cluster, whether your cluster needs an upgrade, etc. All of these things you could handle using Prometheus. And at Platform Cloud, we use Google Stackdriver, which is actually paid, but it offers the same functionality, even more, I suppose. And it's a pretty awesome tool. If you're already using G-Cloud, I recommend Stackdriver. Yes, Prometheus is also a very good project for you to use. The next one is logging. So to debug your applications, when the pods crash or in a crash loop back off or something, you have to check out the logs to actually see why it crashed. Yeah. So FluentD is the main logging agent that actually works with Kubernetes. Almost all the cloud providers and everything works with FluentD. So that through FluentD only you see kubectl logs, you enter your pod name and you see the logs that's coming through FluentD. So all the logs that are seen out in the application are going through the FluentD agent and the saved elsewhere for you to actually view and debug later. So that's pretty much on the logging part. Then Jaeger and open tracing. I don't know whether you saw, I posted a Medium link on the Kubernetes Sri Lanka page that explains the importance of tracing in a distributed network. I recommend you read it. So basically, to cut it short, in a distributed network, right, say you have about thousands of microservices talking to each other, and if something goes wrong, all right, you need to know why it went wrong and from where the pathway originated, right? I mean, service 1 would be calling service 2, 2 would be calling for service 45, then 45 would be calling 161, and then all the way, it goes around and around. So you should have a clear path where know actually where all of things went wrong. Like for an example, service 4 would be sending something very, some random wrong data, and it will go through service 10, service 15, and then it will go back to service 25 where an error occurs. Because service 25 is the one that's using that data. So for that you need a tracing agent. You need to trace where it's coming from. So Istio done by NetMini again supports book tracing, and she will explain a bit more about it than me. So I think this is pretty much it on my end. So I hope you understood what some of these projects meant. I hope it would be beneficial for you in your future